All right. Welcome to the Lenzito podcast. This is Akani. On my right, we have our guest, Bongani Baloyi, and to his right, we have Lenzito himself, Mr. Mushweshwe or Mushesh, or however he wants to call himself on this particular day. I'll hand over to Lindsay to tell us a little bit more about the podcast, and then we'll come back to me and I'll introduce the guest. Yeah.
Mr. Lindsay to the number one motivator outside of the equator. Welcome, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in once again. Thank you for subscribing, liking, following. As you guys know, we're fairly new, but we are very grateful for your support thus far. And we are looking for like-minded individuals and organizations, same like with XILUVA, which we'll hear about as we grow and as we go on in the discussion. So we would like to grow with visionary parties like XILUVA and its leader, Bongani, who Akani will introduce further. But I think for me, I just wanted to touch on, because I've been getting questions on what's happening. Is the format of the podcast changed? No. The format hasn't changed. It's still educate, inspire, and inform. Mm-hmm. So what we're focusing on now is elections, because a lot of people don't know nothing about elections, and it's scary. It's scary. We're going to one of the most important elections, one that will determine what type of life we live, what type of life the next 5 years is going to be, whether the potholes will be upgraded to swimming pools, whether the drought will resemble the 40 days in the Bible. So it's important for us to educate and share the knowledge. We are not saying we know everything, but we're also going to try and get the people who know more than us. So yeah, that's the introduction from my side.
Okay, so a lot of you might be asking, so who's Bongani? Why is he your guest? So a lot of us, myself included, I know Bongani as the former Midvaal Mayor. That's because I have family that lives in the Vaal, and because I follow a lot of political sort of news and that sort of thing. I know that he's won a lot of awards for clean governance and so on, which is a little bit sad in the sense that it's not the norm. So we'd like to hear from someone who's made something that's abnormal, very normal, to have clean audits, to have people that actually keep voting for you and keep affirming what you're doing and saying you're a good leader or a mayor or whatever. So he is Bongani Baloyi. He leads a political party called XILUVA, which he'll tell us about. And he's a candidate in the upcoming elections, as you have spoken. So I guess the less said from us, the better. So if he can tell us who's Bongani, where does he come from, what does he believe in, and then we can get into the party once we leave the man, so to speak.
What was life like growing up as a Bongani?
Sure, I think that's probably one of the most uncomfortable parts of part of the conversation, because I'm so comfortable talking about my work more than the man. But nonetheless, I think it's necessary for people to know the man. My name is Bongani Baloyi. I'm a son. I'm a father. I'm an uncle, and I'm all these things in a society, which reminds me of responsibility all the time. So I've brought up in a society in different times, which shaped my outlook in politics. Brought up in Thokoza specifically as a young person in my formative years and ages in life. My father's side, Bahlala at Thokoza, Kumalo Street. Now it's very important because what was happening around that time. So it was my first introduction into politics and what's happening with the world when you're very young. I mean, some of these images when you are 4, 5, 6 years old, it was traumatic things. Seeing people being necklaced, people being burned, stoned alive, and the violence between the ANC, IFP, and my family losing my father's younger brother, who led the MK zone in Ekurhuleni, that part of Thokoza, Kumalo Street. So my interface with politics wasn't by choice. It was by circumstance. I believe now when they say where you raise your child will determine many things about your child.
Yes.
So environment is very important. So I was put in, unfortunately, into this environment where I was exposed to things I started to question later and got to understand its politics, what I saw and how people who fought each other, who happened to be black, were killing each other, and how it was normal to jump a body of someone who had been necklaced, who just preferred a different political
Home.
Yes, I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
That was the crux of it. So later you question these things. And I think there was one incident I'll never forget when I first saw a white person. So they came to my grandmother's house. They were looking for my father's younger brother, or Babungan. It was the first time. TV was not a thing then. I mean, when you're still young, so it's the first time you see someone who does not look like you. So the first time I saw a white person, they came to harass us. So they got one of our cousins there who was a similar age to Babungan, and that's the first time I also saw a wedgie as well. So someone's underwear being pulled from their waist under their
Armpits.
Under their armpits. And that for me, I saw that cousin of ours very differently. Now I understand this thing that people can demean you in front of your children, and it also has a big impact on how your children see you after that.
Yeah.
So when I remember some of these incidents, I relate to things happening now, and I'm thinking, hey, but when I saw first white people, it was not a very good thing.
And you you touch on it. I also don't want us to go into it now. I'm sure you'll delve into it as the conversation goes on. But you talk about the traumas that certain people went through, the victimization, and that now happens to be one of your challenges, because that happens to be one of the reasons why some of the people who should be voting for you are not voting for you. But you'll touch on it.
It's the past association. It is. And for me, it's a simple thing. So when people often look at my career, they think that Bongani is some 50-something-year-old because of the things that one has done. And then you forget that I started politics very early and I'm only 37 now, And I often make the example that Ronaldo did not start off at Real Madrid. So it was he went through
a progression.
Correct. So why can't I do same? And in any case, you start off as a young person, you go into politics, you want to do good where you are. Then you realize doing good where you are has limitations because of things happening in a level where you are not. And then you start to realize that there's something called structural racism, structural apartheid still happening now. Why are black people in such a majority? We have few people who can count who are multimillionaires, billionaires, etc. Why don't we have we not established anything that competes substantively in the financial markets or in the field of finance or even in retail? And yet, if you look at the growth of ShopRite and Pick n Pay, in fact, ShopRite started it by going into townships, and who's buying them? People like
it's us.
So why is it that after so many years we've got PIC, we've got IDC, but we don't have a major black retailer
we've not built enough spares.
Exactly. I don't understand. So then you carefully look and then you understand that there's political interest of those who have the majority of the capital at this stage, who want things to continue the way they are. And when you try and move from one political to the next vehicle, you realize that their tentacles are all over the place, that wherever you are, where they are, will result in the same thing. So the best thing is actually to step back and say, but rather let me build a vehicle extending that will represent who I am. But at the same time, I'm very proud of my past association with other parties because I learned very important things. With the DA, I learned to govern.
Yes.
And that is a first skill. So I'm one of very few politicians who did not start with the popularity aspect, but started with the cold hard work, which is the governance expert.
Had to prove yourself where everything was against you.
Absolutely.
because the conditions, one, didn't favor you, and your fellow colleagues or your fellow politicians were probably waiting for you to fail and just deal with you. So there wasn't
Absolutely.
any favors that was going to be done for
I
you.
started at -10. I was young. I was 26 when I was mayor. I'm black in a municipality that has never had a black mayor. Most of all, you are young. So already people thought that within 3 months, this thing's going to go belly up. So at that stage, I was very conscious to the fact that there's a big challenge that I've been given. I must make sure that I do as best as I can, which means I must sacrifice. And I quickly learned that in the environment I was, the only thing that people there had, which I did not have, was institutional memory. That's it.
Yes.
So how do I get institutional memory? I must work. So I must stop living my life for some time, and I must be the institution. I must understand, because the only thing I realize in these meetings, people are not because they are smarter than me.
Yeah.
It's because I've got history. so I needed to acquire that history very quickly.
I'm almost in two minds. I had a couple of years ago, I had a small chat with Lindiwe Mazibu. I'm not sure if it's the platform to say it, but she mentioned how, and we mentioned it in the DA, how she was shocked at the literacy levels. And because we are engineered to see the skin color, what happens when we see the skin color instead of the actual person is that we blanket the useless people with a good skin, and we blanket some of the bad people with one skin as well. So you're not picking out the useless one, you're blanketing them because you're putting them in a certain group. And she made mention of how horrible the literacy levels is within the DA, and how people within the DA are there because they can't be anywhere else. And when people turn around and say, no, white people literacy levels are up in the sky. And then there comes Lindy who said, nope, that's not what I found out when I was in the DA.
Look, it could be true from her experience. I also found not fully what she had experienced. I also found, let's separate the councillors, public reps, and the municipal staff. Councillors and public reps, I found that were very complacent, and the only thing that they could do is speak about the past, what has happened. It was their only contribution. Only, like really, that's the only thing they brought to the table. So I found with municipal staff that that's where the depth of information, understanding, substance was. And I immersed myself there. And what actually started happening is the incompetence and the comfortabilities in the public civil servant side created a dilemma where I was moving miles ahead than my team.
Did you ever feel that you are in a space where you don't belong? And when you're in that position where you feel that, you know what, I actually don't belong here, what is it that's keeping you there? What is it that's not pushing you to jump ship and go to a party where majority of the people look like you? What is it that says to you, I'm going to change this? What's the motivation behind it?
Look, I think it starts with the imposter syndrome first. So when you get into a space which you never thought you'd get to that space, and you've idolized people who are at that space, and by the consequence of idolizing others is that you create these levels and barrier, and you pour cement on yourself. So now when you get there, you must deal with these insecurities first. Now you're not sure what to talk, whether what you're saying makes sense, whether you are worthy of being in the same space and breathe the same air as them. But once you talk less and you listen, you get to realize, no, man.
Just to jump in there, using Lindsay's picture as a background of saying you come across these things that you thought were a particular way but are actually different, because that's actually a lot of what people who used to work, for example, in the corporate sector, when they have to go to the public sector, they say, the speed of movement is so different, and the level of things that you're able to accomplish are so different. So I want to go back to something that you said that I think a lot of people that were listening would have picked up. You said you became mayor at 26. Now, if you can take us through your journey of being mayor from the age of 26 up until when you stopped being mayor, and what was that transition like, and what was that journey like? Also, just keeping that in mind of saying, maybe I came in at this sort of pace, and this is what I thought I could do, and this is what I couldn't do, and so on. What did that teach you, A, about yourself? What did you learn about politics in general? And what did you learn about whichever, either the party or the municipality that you were in?
Look, when I got elected, fortunately, I was in the municipality for 2 years already.
Oh,
And
okay.
I was elected or appointed as an MMC and given the responsibility to lead a department which was economic development and planning.
Okay.
So I got to that department, and you're looking for some sort of handover. Okay, what do I do? What happens? And there was really nothing.
Nothing,
So
yeah.
you had to figure it out yourself. So I had to learn. Okay, what do we do on day-to-day basis? What is their scorecard? What are we measured on? What's my responsibility?
And
So-
do you at that point in time, are you coming from an economic background in terms of academia, or
No, I was busy. I had an unfinished accounting degree.
Okay.
So there's no basis of merit.
nithanda
Yes.
bomatriki lapho kuti A ne?
I was busy. In fact, I joined. I was busy with my accounting apprenticeship while I was studying.
Okay.
And then I realized this is not the thing for me. So I went through realizing this is not the space for me. So, but the fortunate part of working in that accounting firm, it taught me work ethic and real work. So then you come Monday, you plan, you do your accounts, you do this, and you move through a number of things. So there was a system structure. So I work well within system structure. Then it's system structure, repetition, and that's me. And it sounds boring,
Okay.
but I've really, for me, from that background, then coming into this
We just pull up the main volume there just a little bit.
So coming into the space of
Oh, let me grab this.
okay. There we go. Yeah. So coming into the space of governance and government, from that, for me, I tapped on what I had as a reference and said, let me go back to that. Now let's sit on a Monday. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're a director. Okay, what are your things? What do you think are the things that I need to be aware of? What can I help you with? What can't you make it? So that follows the philosophy of find a problem before it finds me. Because when it finds me, it becomes an embarrassing.
And then you keep being asked questions that you cannot answer.
Absolutely.
And being put on the spot.
Absolutely. So
And,
which then taught me something interesting about leadership, and also how confidence is important. But when you lead, confidence, the source of confidence is subject matter, knowledge of subject matter. Because then you are comfortable to speak about something you are doing. Then that part gives you the capability and authority on a matter, and also for you to speak as a leader on the issue. But then I realized that I've got a big void, so I must fill this void.
Okay.
So then started preparing better for mayoral meetings. When I get to mayoral meetings, I'll be the only MMC with a proper file, ready to report back on activities. So then I put my colleagues in a very difficult situation, and they just said, no, it's just youthful exuberance, because my colleagues, the average age, in fact,
You expose them.
But at least you were not in a party where they say, you know what, Bongani is shining a little too bright. Sizomcima.
No, I'm very happy that I'm just busy. And
Okay.
because I come to them, I ask, you were here, what happened here? You were there, what happened? So I was always a busybody and coming there prepared. My report takes a bit longer because I've, the
Gone
least
through
you
the
can
files,
do
yes.
as a leader, when I've prepared, you must listen to me. So I want to speak, I want to take my time and go through the issues, apply your mind, get back to me.
So as you're talking now, I remember the first thing they taught me in corporate, CYA, cover your ass.
Yes.
It looks like yours were always covered.
No, I got into the rhythm. And I realized that with the administration, the more you are reading what they're presenting to you and giving your views, applying your mind, then it encourages people to say, let me think deeper, let me think longer, because
Yes.
the fellow understands and is So by the time the then mayor pursued another opportunity, created a vacancy, I filled in that nomination form. We competed with three candidates who competed. I
Okay.
was the youngest.
Yeah.
And by the way, my colleagues in Midvaal, while I was 24, the one who was youngest was 55. So I
Yo,
was working with people who were
twice your age.
Yeah. So I had to carefully.
You're working with the old age home.
I even led and was able to extract efficiencies in that environment. So that for me, Midvaal was the best learning environment, extremely best learning environment to understand governance, to understand people and management of people and the resources, and understanding that you know what, this councillor of mine who's 55 must go for a knee operation. I must accept that this person will be out of circulation for some time.
Yes.
So there's nothing I can do. So I must also ensure that they can work within a space where they are comfortable. Yeah. I must carry the weight at times, and I understand that come public holidays, they've got many of them. There's a conversation about grandchildren. So public holidays, I know there's no productivity I'm going to get from these counselors. Instead, I must have a conversation about who's going, are you going, what are you doing, what are you doing. So I always knew that my time to
see who has time and
Okay.
and how do I allocate myself in spread. So I had to be that.
So from a person who's from the outside, like some of us, in the day-to-day running of a municipality, how much work did you do with the outside, as in like Salga or all these other things that look into local governance? Or was it just everyone is doing their own thing and you only come together when there's like a big conference?
We have, because we were a member of SALGA, so we were participating in at provincial structures of SALGA, national structures of SALGA. I even represented Gauteng as an NEC member of SALGA
Okay.
in my last 2 years as a councillor. But as a municipality, so let's now, so I was an MMC, then got an opportunity, then led. And then becoming the mayor, because I saw some challenges around performance, what we need to do, started working on those things immediately, but I also learned some soft skills of leadership and hard skills of leadership. If you lead by authority, I am the mayor and therefore you shall do this thing, officials will quickly put you
In your place, yeah.
Yeah, in the forest. They'll leave you.
Yes, yeah. So and I'm looking at it deeper now. So I'm going back to what you said. You have 55-year-old white men that
Yes.
are reporting to you.
Yes.
Your background, we started off saying
Yes.
the first time you saw a white man was not a very favorable
situation, correct.
How did you manage to, let me not say erase that, but to control and contain that which might have been hatred or which might have been resentment, and how did you put it on the back burner and was able to work with people? What is it that you tapped into that said, like, it's not about me, this is about the people, this is what we're here for? I'm interested in that transition, because you have to become a different person to forget where you come from.
So it's not forgetting, it's acknowledging my past.
Yes.
Acknowledging the things that have happened, but also saying to myself, I need to play a role in changing today and changing tomorrow and having a better influence. I mean, from that stage, one went through a number of multiracial schools.
Okay.
Relating with people differently. But you start seeing, because I'm not sure that's maybe let me call it a good thing. I've always been one who was very observant about people and how you relate to me and how maybe where I come from and how you relate to that. So I've always been very observant in that environment.
Yes.
And began to understand that the best thing I can do is actually be myself. I don't operate from a hate point of view, that negative emotion. I do things because I really want to input and shape society and shape tomorrow. So that means the frequency I need to vibrate at is a higher frequency that does not allow these things to put me down. So when I see people, I see a resource that can be used to fulfill a particular objective. And I am not going to limit myself with pursuing hate, as an example. So I always try and do better than what I can. Notwithstanding the fact that our history is very difficult. Our forefathers were imprisoned, were assassinated, their land was taken, and a number of things happened. So we find ourselves in a situation where we're saying, but how do I honor my ancestors? So So in honoring my ancestors, it becomes a painful journey about where you start, what you must learn, so you can have a better contribution and impact in a system, because now you've learned
Yes.
from people who master the system. You see, because often with public representatives or politicians, they start off on the other spectrum, which is fame, which is popularity, and it's not their substance. So it limits what they can do. So they're more worried about appearing everywhere.
Twittermentarians.
Yes,
Yes, photo ops and cutting ribbons of things that don't make sense.
People did not know me as in my first 4 years as a mayor, because I committed to doing the difficult part, right? So people started noticing the output of my work, not the personality. So
Yes.
many people misunderstand my personality, because I was schooled or got to understand that as a public representative, it must be less about my personality, it must be more about my output. That's why even my Twitter account, when I was a mayor, it wasn't about personality or even some jokes. It was just about the work and the output, the work and the output. But when you left and now I don't have the responsibility of government, I can share a few jokes and
Yes.
But the moment I put that suit back, I revert back to the default.
You jump into character.
Yes.
Yes, because I'm a public representative. So I must be aware of a number of things, limitations that I can share, and various other things as well. So I must operate within that part of appreciating that the people I serve is not the more wealthy people, but it's every South African who, when they look at their leader, they want someone they'll be comfortable with, who they will trust that they will manage the fiscus responsibly and
Yes.
deliver for them. So the Midvaal experience working with elders like this, in fact, I had to sharpen soft skills of leadership, which is persuasion.
Okay.
So if as a leader you cannot persuade somebody, and do so in a manner which is civil, which is cordial, which is also appreciating that your points you are raising are good, or the points I'm raising are like this, and you have proposed the best course of action, we have fully support that. So if you don't persuade people to voluntarily abandon their positions
And come to yours.
and support, not just support, but actively input to a realization of
To propel it even further.
correct. So I realized that no, man, whatever the resource I've been given, I must extract the best out of the resources I've been given. And with this resource, I must work around there. I must understand their situation on health, situation on family, understand the limitations there too, because I saw
What drives them.
exactly. So I had to be a parent as well. You'd be so surprised that even these people who are older when they're going through problems, I was the shoulder they knew that if I go to
Correct.
and
He's going to listen.
and so I had to build that empathy. So I had to be exposed to these things to understand how to deal with humans and resources and time allocation vis-a-vis the outputs that people expect of us.
So there was actually a nice segue there, and you know, as I'm listening to you, it gets so interesting. I think I want the story to flow, but I also have to jump into some of the things that you touched on. You spoke about land. What is your view on the land situation? What is your views on land expropriation?
I expropriated land when I was in Midvaal for
Chesa!
servitudes and a number of things. Our position of land is that, firstly, we believe land is amakos, African royal households. In fact, I want to call it correctly, because sometimes we say it's tribes, which is not the correct. So let me say amakos, the whole institution Yabarena.
Yes.
Is one who they are the custodian of land. So we firmly believe in XILUVA that Amakhosi are the custodian of land. When we speak land, we speak three things: beneath the land, on
The
top
minerals,
of the
yeah.
land, and the laws that govern what happens on top and beneath. So right now, when we speak land, we just speak what we see and we leave it there. But we don't actually realize the laws that govern what happens on this land and beneath is actually an issue of land. And that brings in the participation and relevance of Amakhosi. Do they have any say into whatever laws we have in the Constitution? In fact, they are not. They are a thing which has been left there, and there's a thing called customary law subservient to Roman, Dutch, and British law, which has no relevance. It's still standing there, hanging. So then Amakhosi, and ironically, those are the people who said let's form our own political party after visiting the Queen. Let's form our own political party.
Yes.
So you can go and represent us in this situation, so you can go get our dignity and land. What did we get in 1994 two things we are still very far from living with.
No dignity, no land.
So I firmly believe that the system that we need to get to as a country, we need to have the institution, we need to coordinate better the institution Yabarena into an institution where all of them come together, where we lead with
Yeah, more than just having figureheads and
absolutely. No.
people who are just waiting for getting a new baki and an allocation and getting.
That thing upsets me so much because how can landowners behave like this? It's as if it's landowners who are sleeping, right? So it's also historical
Yes.
because of lack of resources and the fact that a councillor in any traditional rural part, a councillor has more power than a chief or induna.
True.
Because when people want services, when people want water, service, they don't go to Ingos.
Yeah.
They go to this councillor. So even Nenduna Ihambana
was supposed to be a subject of the chief.
You see?
No, and this is a big issue because I'm just thinking, I know in Limpopo specifically, there are many cases where people will go to a tribal authority and buy land. And then someone at the municipality decides that, no, actually, this part of the land actually belongs to the municipality. It's not part of the tribal land. And what they'll normally do is they'll hire TLBs and whatever. They'll wait for people to buy and build. Then after you've done building, then they come and they bulldoze because they want to show the tribe, the so-called tribal authority, which we are agreeing that it's not a good. Yeah, we want to show who's boss. And it's like one of those it's like a replay of Anaconda on one of the channels. It's something that happens every year. You know it's going to happen. And so how would you say would be the best way to deal with the conflict that exists between traditional authority and elected authority, so to speak? How do you marry them? How do you...
Conflict assumes we're the same. There's no conflict. There's ill discipline. There's indelelo. We believe there's no conflict. It's just people who don't understand hierarchy and who have stepped out of who they are. And when you look at things that represent them, let me touch on a bigger point about, of course, and why we believe it's important for us. So firstly, we say our ideology is Shiluba is Ubuntu.
Yes.
How do we define Ubuntu? We say Ubuntu is three things. The first part is Umuntu Abantu. So Umuntu Abantu basically says to us as an African, we don't believe in individual society. We believe that you are firstly part of a group.
Yes.
That's why
Kabat.
So it then contradicts what we have been taught about liberalism, that it's individual. Here, ourselves, we're saying we're more community. It's people first and then you. So you as an individual, you affirm yourself. Society affirms you as an individual on the basis of your contribution to society. That's why when someone does something so heinous in society, they say, because you put your interest ahead of the interest of
the community.
Correct. So you can use that example around those who have been leading the country and evaluate if they have actually contributed positively to the interest of black people in a society, which is no. So now we will move from Ubuntu Abantu.
Yes.
That's the first aspect of Ubuntu. The second part of Ubuntu we say is Sintu. It's how we have lived and just how we relate to ourselves, nature, and everything else, and the laws that we observed as Africans. The third part is Amasiko. Amasiko depends on area, depends on imizi as well.
Yes.
But khona as a general, Amasiko wethu senza kanje is also determined by also weather. Thina ngalesikhathi senza ukuthi lana, because we can't plant. Then instead of planting, we did this ritual, we did that because of locality.
Yes.
So replacement.
Yes. So these things were how we related to ourselves. These things were basically was the foundation of governance.
So I'm going to be playing nitpicker. I'm just going to be nitpicking the big words. You spoke of heinous. How do we deal with heinous crimes? What is Shiluva putting on the table in terms of curbing all these heinous crimes, all these senseless killings, the senseless murders, the unnecessary killings, basically?
We'll start at the same point that if you see the necessity of us Africans assimilating back to ourselves is important. So the bigger point I was making is that we've assimilated, when we get into politics as black people, we assimilate into a culture that says liberalism is this, socialism, Marxism, and all these other isms.
Leninism.
Yeah. So then I try and locate myself in those things, and I generally do not find myself. Where I find myself in is amasiko, of course. Then you try and say, but why did we not develop the things that made our ancestors who we are? The reason Africans are so exposed, I would dare to say that, in fact, go as far as to say the reason Africans are so exposed is because we've walked away from the thing that protects our essence. So we assimilate into things of other people, we leave the things that matter to us. And then you want to get into the world, not on the basis of who you are, but who you are aspiring to be from others, watching others. So we are saying, no, we are the ones who are saying, we refuse now. We've gone through this thing. Now we're saying, no, we're going back to who we are. We're going to develop these ideas that our forefathers had around leadership, around governance, around how you do all these things. That's why we're saying Shiluva and Ubuntu. So now when you go to these heinous crimes, a society that respects itself, that can resolve its issues locally in a manner that makes sense, prevents some of these things. But now the thing that makes people get into crime, many people think dealing with crime, you must just increase the police. It means arrest more people. That's basically what you're saying, and we are saying, no, but if the sustainable way of dealing with crime is resolving poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Because if I'm sitting like this and I have got nothing on the table, and my stomach does not listen to sense, my stomach wants food, and I look at my children as well, and next. So it means because of the socio-economic situation brought about by politics and the economy, the choices I am going to make is going to determine whether I eat or I don't eat. So it's not because I won't eat because I'm not finding a job and there's job market available. No, there's more people available than jobs available. So what am I going to do naturally? When I walk out of here, I see my life is there. So the choice you make.
I'm glad you went there. I'm glad you touched on that. And Akani knows very well. I hold a certain view where capital punishment is concerned. I have a specific view, and I want to push you in the corner.
About capital punishment?
I'm going to push you in the corner. Don't run into me. Okay. So you mentioned and you mentioned serious things that crime is driven by unemployment, all these social issues.
Yeah.
Which I will not dispute in totality, but as Amajita from Ekasi, we can see that yes, those things that you mentioned are there. However, when crimes are committed, we don't see the proceeds of those crimes fixing those social ills that we're talking about. Then we jumped to what you closed off with your last statement. You say, "Sban banu drive motetile, sban banu chola, nentombe so." So the crime is now no longer being committed to solve the issues at home. The crime is now committed to uphold a certain status which is not true. It's not a true reflection of who the person is. Yes. So now if we go on that trajectory and we say, here's a person killing another person, not because he wants to feed his family. He's killing another person because he wants to drive a nice flashy car so that he can go pick up this girl and that girl.
And flash on the gram.
And post Sbawel. Is that not a cry for a capital punishment?
The reason I'm going to respond to that, I don't think it is a cry for capital punishment. I'm very obsessed about what makes people do certain things before getting to the committing of the crime. So when we get into government, we're going to be obsessed about before you commit a crime, I must have found you, given you an escape. And one of the things, and I was careful not to mention, that's why I mentioned Abu Sbanban when you're looking outside of the yard, because in Jin there's no father. So your reference of a father as a young boy is what you see outside there. Stats SA tells us that 60% of African households are single parent households.
Yes.
So our reference of a stable family And remember, our family nucleus has only, we've defined it now because of migration. It has always been umkhulu, ugogo, malume. It's been like the full, it hasn't been like one person, one person.
Yeah.
So the fact that they've killed the African nucleus and African family, ukuthi manje malume ubona umntana ona-7 ukuthi angamdlwenguli. So the African family, which is a safety net, is decimated. So part of the thing we must do is find a way of rebuilding the African family nucleus, which is a safeguard for many things. So if we don't do that, and the African family nucleus, by the way, provides us of education, and also reaffirms to children who they are. I mean, opening that I know about myself was from my grandmother. Those things we've lost. So there are some of us who know those things because of these women who were there. And Abu Malume was saying, no, this thing is wrong. You can't do this, you can't do this. So I'm also arguing that part of the socio-economic consequence has also been the decimation of the African family nucleus, which has left African exposed. So there's nothing that protects us. Family, and of course, because it's got no economic value, no governance value. So Africans are exposed to anything. And then Africans are the most receiving to external things. So I don't believe in capital punishment. You must, when you go to prison, you must actively work to correct the wrongs you have done. So it means the time you have must be labor. So I don't believe in that. So in any case, there was a study that showed how effective capital punishment is to deter crime, and it showed its ineffective rate.
Yeah, because I mean, once you're dead, you can't fix what you've done wrong, in a way. And I think I sort of agree in the sense that a lot of the people who've done studies into this will tell you that your family background, in the sense of answering the question, was your father present, was he not present, what type of family you grew up in, what were you exposed to, those are greater determinants of whether you become a criminal or not than any other, sort of factor. But I want to take it back, slightly back, and I'll do what you're doing, the nitpicking on names. You spoke about assimilation. You spoke about land. Now, I know XILUVA has a very interesting position on land as concerning the Kingdom of Lesotho and the Kingdom of Eswatini. Do you want to maybe tell us about that and what informs it?
They are part of a South Africa, and we believe that we must reunify. There must be a process of reunification, appreciating the roles of Bukhosi in those areas. I think we are far better, stronger together, as opposed to separate together. And I really think the future requires us to come together to jointly utilize our assets. In any case, the people have already unified. Go to some places in Eswatini, look at the border, it does not make sense. So I am saying those areas, they're part of us. We have a number of Basotho who are working in South Africa, some who are Zamas as well. But equally, South Africa needs Lesotho for water. So the bulk of the water,
Yes.
comes from Lesotho. So we need to have a conversation around how we
Rationalize
not
this.
just rationalize, but you see, South Africa has actually been bad in economic diplomacy. Extremely bad.
Elaborate.
So Americans, if you look at what America sent to their Senate in the letter they wrote about reevaluating their economic relation with South Africa, was born on the realization, according to them, that our continued collaboration and growing a relationship with Russia and China is posing a national interest for them. So they firmly believe that our continued behave in that manner hampers their economic interest or puts a threat in their economic interest and national interest, by the way. And that also underpins or underscores a very dangerous thing about how they see us. Because how do you say that to a sovereign state? You are bold to communicate that to people you know you are controlling. So it's developing now. So I think when we look at immigration, I'm going to park. When I speak about Lesotho and I speak about Swaziland, I don't relate to it within the frame of immigration.
Of immigration, yes.
It's a specific conversation and not a general one.
Correct. So when we speak about foreign relations, and most of it, let's look at Africa, we as on the basis of national interest for the country.
Yes.
So we've got millions of Zimbabweans, if not hundreds of thousands of Zimbabweans in the country because their country is in a worse off situation. There's not amount of jobs that create and absorb them where they are to South Africa. So we agree that we should respect the laws of our country. We should deport people who come in illegally. Over and above just the mabahambe, we need to there has to be some level of sophistication. So it just can't be mabahambe. We are saying there has to be levels of deportation, and those who come into the, let's deal firstly about foreigners in the country who utilize our social infrastructure. They must pay a premium to utilize our healthcare system.
Yeah.
And if we use in our schools, they must pay a premium. So it mustn't be free for all. They must pay a premium. When I travel across the world, I buy insurance before I land. By the time I land, they also want to look at my insurance papers to see if I'm covered, so I'm not a burden on them. So because social infrastructure is not the best in Zimbabwe and they come here, they must pay here. So they must know that you must pay up front. So we must also be quite very intentional about some things. For an example, when there's foreigners in Hillbrow who there's a public school that 60% of the learners there are foreigners, it's not good. We must cap it at 10%. So no school must have more than 10% of foreigners. And those 10% of foreigners in a public school must pay a year in advance by January. Because we don't want those who will pose a risk and threat on us.
No, it's funny you should say that because, I mean, in university, it works exactly like that. There's fees that you pay as a South African, and then they have a fee structure for SADC, and then the rest of Africa, and then the rest of the world. Absolutely. So it already works on that basis.
But it's not being enforced. So there are things that we must do inside the country, and there's things that we must do outside of the country. Now, economic diplomacy comes here. Zimbabwe is rich with agriculture, with minerals. Why is South Africa sitting back and saying, but we're not going to play an active role? I firmly believe that South Africa, in terms of its geopolitics and location, strength in the continent, we must lead economic development in those areas as well.
Yes.
It's far cheaper to create jobs in Zimbabwe than deporting continuously. So we must then say as a country, it's in our national interest that we've got a hand in the following minerals.
Yes, no, and basically we already have a budget for dealing with Zimbabwe. Why don't we use that part of the budget to actually fix something rather than...
South Africans to go and invest in Zimbabwe, and South Africans who are investing in agriculture. So the country decides we're going to identify 100 farmers. These farmers have got the experience. We're going to take these farmers into Zimbabwe to do these following commodities. These farmers are going to use South African money and zero interest. 40% of their produce is coming back to the country, 60% is remaining there. There's agriculture, there's mining, there's all of these things. So while we are stimulating economic activity there, we are doing so on the basis of the things that we have an interest in that also stimulate and sustain our economy.
So here's what I'm then picking up. Okay, one, as I see you describing South Africa as the USA, to say your national interest above anybody else. That's the one. Then secondly is then how do we then get over the legislation that these countries have in their places where they will go and say, listen, in this industry, no foreigners. Because that's what they do in their countries. And then when they come into South Africa, it's free for all. They literally have more rights than South Africans. In fact, the person in South Africa with the least rights is a law-abiding citizen. Because prisoners have more rights than you. They've got the rights. They've got the rights that you have, and they've got rights that are given to them inside a prison cell. Criminals have more rights than you because they have rights that are there for criminals that you will never use because you'll probably never commit crime. I mean, over the last few years, we've seen ministers and senior politicians and premiers even go to court because they don't want to get arrested. We don't have a choice. They pick you up. And there's no X-Class or SUV that's going to come pick you up. They pick you up and they throw you in a van. But there are certain people that are just so important that they can go to court to say, I don't want to be arrested. Me, I'll go myself.
When I'm ready.
And once the lawyer has decided.
So I guess it's a comment that I would like your feedback on. It's not necessarily a direct question. Is that one? I see you describing South Africa as a USA, which I don't have an issue with, because when the US um, takes a stance that benefits the people, they do so unapologetically. That's the one.
For me, it's very important because South Africa has not gotten to a stage where we speak about non-partisan, where we can have multiple political parties, but we know on this one issue. When on this one issue, you can ask whether it's a EFF person or so on.
Free front.
Even then, they will know that on this one issue, we are together.
This
is the South African interest.
Yes.
And I believe part of my responsibility is to persuade my generation to consider that strongly. Because when you are the president or national figure in politics, my sole responsibility when you are look at the union buildings is how to make South Africans rich.
Yes.
While accumulating resources that benefit the national fiscus of the country, we know, we need minerals. What's our role in DRC? So just no conflict. Why don't we be aggressive in whatever we want in the resources in a way that uplifts their people there as well? Because while there's lots of fighting and all of these things, resources are being extracted every day in DRC.
Do like what China does.
No, because I think we, as a country, are afraid to be that,
No,
because
it's already politicians' interests are ahead of our interests.
No,
Politicians have mines in Zimbabwe. They've got this. They've got this. So I am saying let's replace the interest of individual politicians
And
with
do it
our
broadly.
collective. And let's be honest about it. To say the country will have a military base there for a reason. Because
Yes.
they must protect this interest of ours and stabilize the region. Why must the country in Europe come and do that while we're sitting here and busy singing praise about Mandela? And we must embrace what we need to do.
yeah, because I say they're afraid because we do a lot of intervention in Lesotho because our water comes from there, but they don't say this outright and say the reason why the stability of Lesotho is important to the Republic of South Africa is this.
So that people
There
in
isn't.
Gauteng can drink water.
Yes.
No one is like saying it, outright.
No, it's as if we're like God's gift to humanity. We just want people
To like us.
To like us. No. We must understand in the global stage of things.
Yes.
Economics matter. How we're able to provide some securities and protection for Lesotho and Basotho to see that it makes sense
Yes.
for them to be with us than against us on the other side matters.
And you talk about that. I think they had so yesterday they had the Minister of Minerals in Lesotho, and he was saying there's some minerals that is like literally untapped, and they're calling people because they don't have the skills.
And they shouldn't be calling just anyone, because. So just on that, I'll start with a statement, and then I'll ask the question. So in my previous life, I used to do a lot of work with development funding agencies, and whenever I went to a US funded event, the big American companies would be there, like your Ford, your Coca-Cola, and whatever. When you go to the French, Total will be there, Air Liquide. They were very bold and about that they are representing the interest of their country. And even when they have like raffles for prizes, even the hotels that you'd be sleeping at would be owned by a French national or a German or whatever. In fact, the USA, in the first line of their foreign policy, says our apex priority is to protect the economic interests of the United States. So what would a XILUVA government put as its first liner? What would your foreign policy stance or the basis of that be? What type of South Africa do you imagine in terms of how it relates to the world? Maybe we can start from a local sort of level. How do we relate to our neighbors? And how do we relate then to the rest of Africa? And how do we relate to the world?
We would underpin our foreign relations strategy primarily on economic interest and national interest of the country that we are pursuing and protecting that. And there's also often other layers that are very important, such as human rights and all of those things. And it becomes really murky and difficult there in human rights. is not seen purely as human rights. People look at an issue aligned to a particular either Western dominant view,
Mm.
a pro-Russian view, and various others as well. So you have those fragmentation, but we need to be consistent about our position. So I am arguing stronger for the economic interest of the country as opposed to others, which become secondary but are part of applying our minds. I see I see SADC operating differently in the next 15 years. I don't see a standalone Zimbabwe, South Africa, etc., in the next 15 years. I see integration and development in the region, which will take us a step further to get into a country where citizens can move about much more quicker. You won't see the natural boundaries of countries. It will be integration. For an example, in 15 years, I don't see Musina the way it is. I see brick and mortar
Yes.
from Musina right down to Wabulawayo, where you can't tell that, okay, now I'm entering here because there's talk of development now. No, I see integration. I see really high-rise buildings. I see industry. I link to minerals in Limpopo. Limpopo is going to really blow up in the next 15 years in terms of minerals
Yeah.
that they're discovering there. So I really think that in Zimbabwe and Musina, and I'm using Musina as a classical example because I think it's going to start off in Musina, where you're going to start to see this boundaries and being undermined by development, where you won't see that. So SADC in the next 15 years will start to go closer to something of some a federation of sorts.
Yeah, like the EU sort of exists. Yeah.
It will look like a federation of sorts with a very strong control and a proper governance structures, which will allow for the next 20, 30 years of having one space called something.
I'm glad you mentioned minerals and Limpopo and discovery, because I almost forgot to ask you something. What is your take on Cape Exit in the referendum?
We don't support that.
because they, and that's my view. It might be unfounded, but it's my opinion that those two parties are now becoming more aggressive because of the oil discoveries off the Western Cape Coast. So I feel or I think that they want to close it off so that they can automatically lay claim to that discovery of the oil and the gas.
I think firstly, there's a genuine concern from the colored community in the Western Cape and across the broader South Africa that their societies have been underdeveloped and
Mm.
they have not participated meaningfully in the economy.
Yes.
And then the government has put them in a situation where they are competing with their fellow Africans. And those who are in power seem to be preferential to others and leaving them. So I'm really sympathetic to the view of the colored community. And I'm starting there because part of this feeling and view can also spur them to say, let's rather be on our own. You see, so it takes a legitimate
Concern, yeah.
concerns of people, where others who want to control industry say, but we can take this legitimate concern, align it to our interest. Now we've got one
Hijack it.
enemy, let's hijack it. Now, so then there are those who want the Western Cape to be a colony and just independent, which I don't support. We're one country, and funny enough, those majority who are moving to the Western Cape made their money in Gauteng.
Yes.
And they're still making it.
Correct. So if you cut yourself away from this, you think you'll sustain yourself. You'll sustain yourself.
So on a practical level, do you think that the 9 provinces as we have them now, they make sense? Or would you, I know the people have been floating the idea of going back to 4 provinces as before. Others even come up with crazy ideas of cutting into more provinces.
Well, our ideas are more crazy. We are saying we should remove provinces.
Okay.
So we are saying in terms of restructuring government, 1, we must have cabinet. Number 2, we must remove the provincial sphere of government. Then you've got a two-sphere. You've got national and local.
Yes.
The local government you must reduce from 230, I think, to under 60.
Is it no longer 276?
I think there's been a lot of consolidations, but to
Yes.
move to under 30. I mean, sorry, under 60 municipalities. There's no fundamental role that if the financial resource, the human resources are closest to its people. When I was mayor of Midvaal, 90% of the complaints I could not deal with the complaints that were the responsibility of a provincial government. But the people are here and they see, they don't see a premium MEC. Have you ever seen local communities much
like
to
when you're
a
the
premium house?
councillor and they want to choke you for ESCOM.
Exactly. And yet the local authority has no
Has no
responsibility, has no power.
has no power to do anything.
So we are saying put bulk of the resources and responsibilities to people closest to the people, to the sphere closest to the people. And Kenya did this, I think, about 6 years ago. Kenya mirrored their legislation, very similar to ours, and then they embarked on what they call devolution, which meant they moved from national government to counties. So they have done it before.
Okay.
So there's a physical and there's a reference, actual reference of it happening in the past 7
Yes.
years. We're in a similar environment. So then education gets closer to the people. So in education, it's not your policy aspect of curriculum, but it's your physical management of education, the schools, the
Yes.
teachers, the teaching environment, etc. So I really think for us that's an option that we believe is the best case for us to lead the country and restructure
Okay.
the country.
And in terms of education, if you're in union buildings, do you leave it as is? Do you swap the funding model around to give to technicons what universities get? What changes would you implement? What would be different?
So firstly, we must link any grant that's paid in relation to a child, we must link it to an early child development center. So if a child is not there, you won't get it. So we must integrate all of government services.
Yes.
To ensure that once you are getting a grant for something, the beneficiary is actually getting value. And the beneficiary is actually where they should. I am saying this because when I do lots of door-to-door, I see lots of children who should be in early childhood development and running around half naked and all these
Yes,
things.
because the grant ends up either at the local tavern or it's supporting someone's hair habit or
Correct. So when we speak education, we started as early childhood development. Number two, primary school and high school should be free. So must be early childhood development subsidized by government. So we believe the curriculum of primary and high school needs to change. One of the simplest things you must do is bring back history and more so teach apartheid history as well. Because the more learners grow up in an environment where they are not told what their ancestors did, good or bad, is going to shape people who actually don't appreciate what apartheid is, which just think, hey, this 30 years ago, leave this thing.
You're still complaining.
Yeah, you are still complaining. Meanwhile, a few years ago, I was invited to a Jewish event where they were commemorating the genocide, and they had a 9-year-old who was reciting a poem. At the end, this 9-year-old says, "We must never forget what happened to our ancestors." And I'm saying, this how many years ago is this? And
Yes.
these people are, or some of these people are telling us, forget this thing. It's 20 years, 30 years, forget this thing. And I thought, no, man. You see, here's something.
so it tells you that memory is a weapon.
It is. It's because you pledge. You're saying, and I often do this to myself, that you see what happened to my grandfathers is not going to happen to me. What their legacy went until here. It's my responsibility to take their legacy and put it somewhere. I am not them. I was not there when they struggled, but I'm learning and saying to them on the basis of what they contributed and did, I am going to do more for them in this time.
I've got much sharper human resources skills to go a little bit further than they could.
Also guided by them, because all of this without their guidance is nothing, because you don't see what they see. So equally for me, then it speaks to my grounding as an individual, as a leader. I firmly believe in Isindu, Ubuntu. I firmly believe in spirituality. I firmly believe in ancestors as well and how I relate to them. So I pray to ancestors I know. So when I pray, I don't say, and sorry for those who are offended, Jesus of Nazareth. I don't know him. I know Nkulunkulu Kokoba.
The ones whose DNA you
Yeah,
share.
so I go via my people with the DNA, and then figure out Nkulunkulu Kashembe. So those I don't know, I'm sorry. And I've never dreamed of I am sorry. I relate to those who I've dreamed of. They've said, don't go this path, my son. Consider this path. The guidance. That for me is where it is. So for me, I think people understand what also grounds you and the things which guides you as well and what's important to you. And for me, it's those things that are very important to me. And when I see Africans who are being themselves more, and I see there's an awakening of Africans now finding themselves, speaking more about this cultures and things they don't understand, and elsewhere, and then I feel disappointed that, because the institution of African leaders and traditional leaders has not refined itself over a period of time to adapt to the times and to modernize, to debate about their existence. Now things are happening which should not exist, but some of us must reset. So we fast track this situation where people must discuss why do you still think when you're in KZN they'll tell you 11 cows and people tell you it's culture, and you say but it's not culture, it's because this person or Mr. Shepston decided to put it into a law. Now all of we've not stopped to say but no, reduce this thing. This thing is affecting us.
Another
this 11 cows, make it 3 cows as an example.
another one of those is
Yes.
another one of the things is we inherited the union buildings, as the executive head of government and a parliament in Cape Town, which a lot of people have been saying is actually not very practical. So would you say, from your point of view, should we rebuild parliament as they're doing now, or just move it to Pretoria, then just centralize everything in one place, or should we have maybe a different structure altogether?
Or should we not just move it, because since we have 3 capital cities, should we not just move it to Bloemfontein and everyone travels? We decrease the cost of flying.
Sure, it's very interesting. And look at what connects. There's very strategic things that connects different parts, which were part of an agreement to create a Union of South Africa and all these other subsequent agreements. Then you have the seat of government in Pretoria, and then the next part is the Supreme Court in Bloemfontein. And then
Yes.
from Bloem, you go to Parliament, which is
In Cape Town,
So
yes.
you have these things that connect.
3, yes.
Yes. So I think we must think carefully about those. There are some things that we might need to change and elevate and build anew. I don't believe in the destroying, but I think in building new things. So when we focus into rural development and building new things, I think there's going to be opportunities of re-establishing ourselves differently elsewhere, which makes sense then, many people are still, they feel, oh, Cape Town, having parliament there is the best thing. We feel this environment, these people. So, but people, others are saying, but no, let's do them anew. Why even Pretoria? Why not Mpumalanga? Why not Bloem? Why not Limpopo? Why not even KZN? And rebuild anew from impression. I think that's a healthy conversation.
I also want to, and it's just coming up as you're mentioning the cities, and I know obviously you were part of the province and you are part of the province, you're a resident of the province. If you were given the opportunity to take over city of Joburg as a benevolent dictator, no NGOs, no human rights.
You're assuming that he wants to be benevolent. Let's just say dictator.
How would you fix Joburg? Because we have what is colloquially referred to as a world-class African city. We all know it's not. Yes, it might be one of the most developed still in Africa, but it's not world-class. And we have this city where people who are from the city are too even scared to even go into the city center. How would you fix Joburg, and how long would it take for you to fix Joburg?
Sure, to turn around the municipality is the first phase is 5 years.
Okay.
So it's a full term.
So it's not an event, it's a process.
It's not an event. First, we must accept that coalitions have worsened the state of governance in the city. It has created an environment where competent, suitably qualified administrators don't want to be in an environment where things could change literally overnight, and their job security, and some just want to serve and they're proud to work for the city, and they cannot do so because you have a high turnover of politicians, and now you must constantly refresh. Oh, here's another one, we must brief him again. So you're constantly.
This one doesn't want.
Or our priorities, our priorities are now this. We used to be focused on that.
Correct.
Now we must They said, no, it's rural development now. Then we do rural development. They're like, no, 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 no. Actually, it's integration of this.
City development.
Or the one that came in says, no, I don't want tiles in this office. I need the carpet.
You see, it's things like that. So effectively, we plan multi-years for municipality.
Yes.
There's the medium-term revenue budget expenditure period, which is about 3-4 years. So you do so. So some of the things when I was mayor accepted that it would not happen in year 2, year 3, it will happen in year 4. I'm content with that. Now I must steer the ship to get there. So when there's abrupt things happening, now this plan is no longer a plan. It's a thing you look at and you just, God help us type of approach. It does not help. So
Yes.
then the city manager cannot adequately plan. You can't hold them accountable for performance because things change. The goalposts are changing regularly. Now it has created an environment where those who stay just are there for job security only, and politicians.
And they do the least.
Correct. So the first thing you need to do is stabilize administration, and get back to proper planning for the city, because the city of Johannesburg has capacity for planning. Planning for your infrastructure and planning for the future. Most importantly, how do you fund the infrastructure? Because there are some things you must do simultaneously. As you deploy infrastructure, allowing for movement of goods and services, and people to have water, electricity, and those things, you are ensuring that people can just do the most basic of things. The second part is law enforcement. How do you work with the province and national government to strengthen and tighten law enforcement? The city needs to go through a rigorous gentrification of the CBD. The city needs to take back the CBD and need to redevelop the CBD and get people into the CBD. So if you see what has happened in Johannesburg and Gauteng, actually, people move into Gauteng, they don't start off in the CBD. They start off in the periphery of informal
Deepsloot,
Yes.
to Alex.
Absolutely. So it's Deepsloot, and then they move into Annandale side. Then they have the
Lowly.
shacks, Lowly.
Yes.
And
Kokotela.
so it's no longer. So the people now who come there are those who have been in some time in the CBD, the foreigners, and they come through and then they do their thing. So that's why you can find that this is Nigeria. If you're in this part of CBD, this is Nigeria. This
Yes.
part, this is Zimbabwe. This part, there's even
Lagos,
Somalis.
Abuja.
Yes. now they've cut up a piece of that. So you need assistance of and we've long argued that you need actually home affairs at a local level, working with local municipalities, not the administration of the passports and that, but actually a unit of home affairs working with local.
Specific, like a task force, basically.
Correct. So you need a permanently based in Johannesburg to round up all of these illegal foreigners to do that. But the best part, you'll start to see changes when you've stabilized the internal environment. And another politician will tell you they can do things quickly, and most people can, but I tell you they won't last. The right way to stabilize Johannesburg is you must understand it's a code 14 track. So you're not turning it very, you must.
It's not your test.
No.
Not for wheels.
It's not your test.
Yes, it's not your test. You can do anything. You must go gradual and proper.
And use 2 lanes instead of 1.
Yes. There are some things you'll have to do faster. There's some things you have to go faster, slowly fast.
Okay. One thing as a voter, I always make sure I vote. I almost never vote for the same people. I can't say. It would
It's the
yeah.
past. It's not like I'm asking you who are you voting for now. Who did you vote for? So we can hold you accountable.
In the past,
we never hold people accountable.
I've done COPE. I've done ANC at one point.
So you are part of the problem.
Yes, I am. We've done EFF. We've done ACDP at a point. All these, and one of the things, the premise to my question is this: that one of the things that I could never understand about opposition politicians in particular, maybe politicians in general, was the lack of honesty about things that did actually work. So someone says, yeah, they've done nothing. You're like, but that can't be true. I mean, the Soweto, I come from Soweto. The Soweto I grew up in and the Soweto that of today are 2 completely different places. So I cannot take someone seriously who says, nothing was done or this wasn't. So the premise to my question is, what do you think that the current government has done well and should continue with? And then I guess the opposite of that.
You can't say continue with. Maybe what have they done well? Even So say if so, you continue
Well,
endorsing them.
not necessarily. We're just saying that what have they done well and should continue. Yeah, let's say that this should continue, and what we know what should stop, or maybe we don't. What maybe we can ask that too.
Sure. And we'll also make the same remarks when I reflect on the pages of democracy and say, actually, the country is, the ANC government has actually done a lot in the country, from infrastructure, roads,
Yeah.
all these other things, expanding access to from a few to majority of people, and also from the policies adopted to give black people a way into leadership or management in private sector, also in government, to use government procurement to benefit South Africans as well, and black people in development. I think that there's been progress there. That's my point of view. There's been progress. What I'm not happy with is the fact that it has not been substantive.
Yes.
And the standard, that being the ANC, is a standard that is weak and very low as a benchmark for a country like ours that
Yes.
has competent, capable people to take us beyond. So I really think my belief is that whoever leads the country must move transformation from where they left it to a deepen and broaden transformation, infrastructure development, but also people say we're not a country of law and order in this democracy. You know, I've seen a few democracies and been in a few countries. We don't appreciate what they have there. So
Another one of your pet issues, but yeah.
we don't appreciate that. Actually, some things work.
Yes.
Some things work, and we must enhance and protect the things that are working. But part of the protection of the things that are working is the removal of the ANC.
Yes, because I guess for the main issue is that they also had a very low benchmark. So, I mean, look at our roads. We had only, 7,000 kilometers of national road. Now we have 24,000, and we think it's wonderful. It actually isn't. For the size of the population that we have, we had at one point, I forgot, with like less than 30 gigs or of what's this thing, of electricity. Then we went over 40, and we thought this was wonderful. But now we know, thanks to load shedding, that actually it's not enough for our aspirations that we're trying to do.
So let me put it this way, and I kind of made a kind of very fierce debates. Sometimes we don't agree at all, but when I put it in the sense, and for me, I was a member of the ANC. I was a branch leader in the ANC. And even when I did exactly what Zuma's doing now. When I was in the ANC, I didn't vote for the ANC. I didn't vote for the ANC because I could see what is happening, that it's not the best person that's getting the job. It's the one who's making the most noise. And that does not seek to achieve the ideals of serving. Because we are serving people's stomach, and we are not serving the community's interest. So that's my issue that I have. But where my comparison comes in, so Akani says, yes, there's a lot of progress that was done, but compare it to what? So then I say, we look at the Afrikaners at 1918, dirt poor. They started with Santam. They said, no Afrikaner is going to go to your old mutuals. They started Santam. They said, no Afrikaner is going to go to a mutual and federal. Bring your stuff here. That's what I'm comparing the ANC with, to say, here are people who were given state power to improve the lives of their people. And they sacrificed. They said, we are going to go hungry, but our people will flourish. We look at the same. They did it in about 30 years, because that was 1980, 1920. And then by 1950, they were in power. And literally, they reserved jobs for their own. And you look at the ANC now; it's 30 years. Are we a better black than we were in '94?
Absolutely yes.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of memory about that part for obvious reasons. But when I look at when I read literature and I look at the differences in the material environment think that environment might have catered better jobs for black people, reduce issues of crime, but there were many other things that made us realize that we actually are not happy with this situation. And apartheid again was a crime against humanity. So I can never accept that it was better, a crime against humanity. But it might also indicate the benchmark is so low now that we even compare to a crime against humanity.
Yes.
You know, so it's so bad that even that is an acceptable.
Yeah, people can
place.
even look back.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, on the numbers thing is that we've moved a lot because what we define as poor today is way richer than the benchmark of poverty 94 or 96 or that sort of thing. But we do have a problem of underachievement because, and I think that the main issue we have as citizens of the country is that we know that there is capacity to do amazing things and we just never use it. I mean, when we had to host the World Cup, all of a sudden, we could build stadiums on time, and we could pave them, and we could reorganize our transport. We could,
You could have a trial.
you know,
You
and
could have a trial within 1 week.
yes, and you had like these special purpose courts. You could deal with people. We would ramp up our hotel infrastructure, and everything just worked because somehow we wanted goals to be scored or whatever. But then
What a pun. We wanted goals to be scored.
So now I think, and that's part of the reason for existence for Shuluba is to say we are going to be different.
yeah,
One of the difference we're going to introduce, we're going to insulate the party from external influence. So
Okay.
it means this thing of internal contest is not going to happen like it happens elsewhere. So the only, you'll have prerequisites that you must have gone through as a leader of Shuluba to ascend. And one of those, you must have led in government. And through
Okay.
leading in government, we must have seen your positive contribution and improvement of material situations. So the thing must not be popularity, but it must be what have you done.
okay.
So
So
just
basically,
like
like sort of like a Chinese. I was about to say that
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
the Communist Party doesn't just allow anyone to just pay 10 rands and become a member. You need to apply and you need to show what value you bring. So Shiluba is going into in a couple of days. You're going to have a manifesto launch, and what would the avid voter, especially the young voter, because that's the one that actually needs to make the difference, what should they be looking out for, or what can they expect to hear?
It's about what are we going to do to revive the labor-absorptive food industries and its subsidization. So we are one of few parties that are speaking pro-subsidization of local markets from the perspective of sustaining job-absorptive areas. In the valley here, ISCO Mittal is gave a notice some time ago that they're going to shut down.
Yes.
Imagine when you've got a sensible government, why are you intervening immediately to protect those jobs? This is the steel industry. We know what the steel industry has done in terms of price increasing and competition, etc. Got big capacity. We are going to grow infrastructure development in the country, development of SEDEC. It's a national asset. This thing, so take it over. So we are proponents of saying we are more pro subsidization of our local industries. Those that are job absorptive, including the agriculture industry as well. And we firmly believe that with the agriculture industry, we must reduce over a period of time the 40% of the goods we import that we can actually produce ourselves. So if
Yes.
you do that, you're actually increasing capacity locally, creating jobs and that sort of thing. So
Not import toothpicks.
imagine.
And bricks.
We must really start protecting our local industry. I know many people are against protectionism, and these are the globalists. Let's compete globally. If you get a better price elsewhere, no. When you are there, I'm saying, how do I protect my people?
Yeah.
Yes, here. How to ensure that they sustain their livelihood, they are employed, they are busy. I don't. When you're a president, the worst thing for you is to have residents who can sit like this.
They're playing
with no cameras. Every day they sit like this because we've got nowhere else to go. So then, and someone said, I don't know whether it's the Bible said, the boredom is the devil's playground. So we must get people working. So we are going to chart a path for those we believe who are vulnerable and who need government intervention, and those who can exist outside. And most interestingly, we're going to propose that government must consolidate. You know, many of South Africans are now teachers in Singapore.
Yes.
So we're actually saying where government is going to intervene there and create a pool and actually encourage South Africans to leave the
Okay.
government will pay.
Yes.
So it won't be an individual thing that you must do these interviews and
Like with your doctor's degree, where a
Yes.
certain percentage of it is paid. And I think it will then come back to assist with what you made when you said that because you travel, you are able to appreciate more because you're not locked in the room that's full of smoke. You are able to go out, get some fresh air, and come back and say, "Chance, here where you are."
it's
in
far more
them
powerful, but equally the primary objective is to get you employed.
Yes.
So,
So-
if you're employed, you're not a problem. Even better when you are in another country. So then I'm getting, you're planning, you're doing everything possible to get your people going. Because ultimately, I know black people don't generally go and live in a country and die there. No. You want to go and slaughter, go and burn your pepper. You are going to come back. You finish it.
Okay, so as we go towards the end, a couple of days ago, I was forced to write an explanatory note for a friend of mine who wanted to vote for a certain party, which I won't mention. And the reason why I had to explain it to them is that they had this idea of the party that the party founders don't have. They're trying to achieve this, and then this person says, "No, we're doing it for this." Like, but no, sorry, let me explain to you. This is what the guy says, and this is what you are saying. This is what the guy wants, and this is what you want. So my question then is, I'll put it this way. Who must not vote for you? Who are the people that are looking in the wrong place? They shouldn't come thinking, I'm going to get this and I'm going to do that, and we're going to do... Who should stay away from... Who are the undesirables in...
Racist.
Okay.
Yeah, racist and people who don't believe in Ubuntu, because when you come, everyone is welcome, but you must believe in assimilating to Ubuntu.
Okay.
So it means it must be a norm. The type of economy you are trying to build, what are the features you are looking for? Then we've said Shiloba has been in government for 10 years and has directed more than 2 trillion rands per annum towards a particular objective.
Yeah.
When you go into a space called KwaZulu-Natal, you might not have provinces, but you'll still be referring to an area, KwaZulu-Natal.
It was...
When you go for an interview in the private sector, uzokhuluma isiZulu. Whether you're white, whether you're black, uzokhuluma isiZulu. And if you are closer to Mangus, uzokhuluma this dialect yalaphaya, Mangus, Ejozini, out there, which is Zulu, but obviously Swati. When you are in Limpopo and you are in Venda, you're going to speak Chivenda, whether you're white or not. Because then it will reflect those who have got means, who own the industries.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the ultimate dignity. People come up with the laws for racism, I agree, but I think the biggest way to deal with racism is to uplift black people. Take your money, give it to your people. The others are going to see how we are selling malala. Now we must follow the money and the people and go
financially.
No, very true. I mean, our biggest tomato farmer in the country speaks the local language of where he farms the...
But I'm so unhappy with that fellow there, because look at Queen Charge. Look at the situation of Queen Charge.
But I shared a couple of days ago on Facebook a Pakistani national running a talk show speaking Afrikaans. Even Sesotho. My friend.
Yes, no. And when you go to Venda, they speak Chivenda.
So then you have a South African who's been in South Africa for 40 years. 40 years! And you can't even greet. So,
Yeah, no.
Or even Fanaga law. At least.
Okay,
but
so...
nonetheless, I think it speaks to the fact that the industry and finances and respect is held by those who speak a particular language. That's why for Africans, we spoke 90% in English.
Okay, no, that was my question. Who must not vote for him? And that's where I wanted to leave it.
Not the
yeah, look, like we said as well, it's education. It's not going to stop. We'll probably bump into Bongani again. Obviously, we might catch up with him after the manifesto. We might catch up with him after elections to just do a recap and, obviously assess the situation, how things went, and what then, where to from after the election. Yeah, but from my side, a lot of the questions that I had have been answered. Some of the questions that I wasn't thinking about was also answered. So it was created and answered. And yeah, I think, Jeez, I'd give this discussion a 99%. I'm just still not convinced that the capital.
You wanna slay them.
I think the thing of capital punishment can only happen when it's a war. Then would right to take life or when you're
No, but we technically we are. Technically we are. If we look at, if we compare what's happening in Russia, which is a full-on war,
yes,
and we are comparing what's happening
and
now,
the murder rate.
and I think what a lot of people misunderstand about capital punishment is that, some of us, we grew up and we hung around very hardened criminals. A person where you sometimes have to be with that person, because if you are not with them and they are looking for you, you don't know if you're going to live, because that's just how they snap. That's not a person that you can rehabilitate. Correctional service is not going to work on that person. You have a person go into a house with an assault rifle and kill 6 people, including children. How do you rehabilitate that person? You can't say that everyone has a right to live. This person's taking other people's right. Who makes him God? Look, and my thing is, obviously, there are cases where 1 month, 2 months, and let him go. But there are those cases where it's tricky. For that, we can go life without parole.
Look, I think I agree that we need to reevaluate parole. There are certain crimes that should not allow for parole, where if it's life, it's death in that environment. But what I don't agree with the current system is allowing prisoners to just do whatever they want inside and all of that. I firmly believe that once you've committed wrong in a society and you're punished and you go and serve 10 years, those 10 years you must serve every day working.
Like the Chinese do.
Yes, so I really, when I look at the prison system, I see people who are going to be making and manufacturing school uniform. Those who are going to be
Building roads.
Those who are less. So politicians, you see, you must not take a politician and put him inside jail and just leave him. No, it must be the type of sentence which requires him to go and be in public every day and to be seen cleaning toilets, building this, and we know that one stole from us. So
Now he's paying us back.
He's paying. So that experience will inspire others to be honest. So I really think the capital punishment, you must work until you die.
Okay. So, what have we not spoken about that you feel like we shouldn't close off the conversation without having said?
Look, I think for us, it's the issue. I need to emphasize the family issue. We need to find ways of building family. We need to use arts and culture in a very productive way of entrenching these values that are pro-family, responsibility. So I think our arts and culture must just move just from entertainment. It must be educate first. I really think there
Yes.
should be a big shift of educate. We can't on a national broadcaster watch or on DSTV watch a show called My Body Works for Me or something like that, where it's prostitutes.
Yes.
Really, and so when you are watching this and it's making it acceptable. So there are some things we must really carefully guard against our moral fiber degenerating and a value system degenerating, because we are allowing things that happen in America to happen here. So we must be careful about what we show and how we build. So there must be successful stories about black people that does not include witchcraft or drugs, as an example, So we must really try and
Or stolen bursary monies.
You see, we must really change this thing.
Yes.
And show and start to honor someone who works a decent job and takes care of their family and is just a responsible present father. Not this Dubai thing. and always.
Yeah, and all these same stereotypes.
Yes,
The same.
now
Yeah.
we're all aspiring to go to Dubai and do this and do this. And shame, I hear some of our sisters are getting negative experience there. But it's not a program for for the show. I was watching someone, I thought, look, now you know when she's been to Dubai, my friend. That was my jokes both there.
Yeah.
No, I think. Yeah, no, I think from my side, I'm covered. It was eye opening. It was fascinating. Like we said in the beginning as well, we have no intention to have interviews. Hence, there's no structure. We can jump from Kumalo Street to the land, and we can jump back to Midvaal, and it's we literally just want our own platform that doesn't come with rules, similar to what you're pushing with XILUVA, to say that when people are not funding you, they can't direct you how they want. It's similar to us. We're starting out small. We're putting our little monies together here and there. Sponsors who come on board will come on board because they love what we're doing and they want to push it. They must not come on board because they want us to go a certain direction. So for us, you talk about family. If you go on our podcast and you listen or you watch our first video, we do say that this podcast we created to document our own stories. If you go from 1488, when Bartholomew Diaz first came to South Africa, 1488.
It's not the 16 what.
No,
It's actually,
16 is the third guy. So it's Bartholomew Diaz.
The famous third guy.
Then there was Vasco da Gama.
Not the underwear, but the person.
And I wonder how that became known as
A Vasco da Gama.
Yeah. Not the DA Vasco da Gama. The first Vasco.
Vasco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but what I'm trying to say is that if you start from those two Portuguese explorers and you try and draw a road map of Europeans, there's no gaps in between the history. Nothing. But you go into our history, there's a Mkulu that's missing. There's a grandmother that's not known, or there's a grandmother who we are told is the grandmother, but it's not actually the grandmother, was just standing in. So our stories have gaps because we never wrote it down. We never documented. That's what we're trying to do. And that's why the podcast in itself is very broad. It's lifestyle and current affairs. So as long as we can be able to go back and say, oh, you know what, Bongani is not around with us anymore, but he once said this. Your kids can then pull the
wisdom.
Podcast, that wisdom, say, no, man, this was my great-great-grandfather. So when they also come in maybe they create a political party, say, no, this thing runs in our DNA. That's one of the reasons. The other reasons is you, like, especially when it comes to the Queen's command, you sometimes have to break the language deliberately, because when you speak it properly, you are the odd one out. We always make jokes with Akane about Devro, Leroux,
Grosvenor.
So when you say Grosvenor, which is the correct pronunciation, and like no
Crossvan.
You understand? So you sometimes have to make mistakes to fit in. So we want to use the platform as well to just help people with general knowledge, because there's certain things that you should know, Jay. It should be similar to a bro code. Sometimes you should not even be taught. You should just know this one. I am Milan. So those are part of the reasons why we actually started the podcast, and so far so good. Like, I mean, I keep saying to Akane as well, hey, you know what, we're actually doing good on the numbers, because we didn't even expect it, because for us it's more for us to get the story across. It's not necessarily we want so many numbers and so forth, because even on our stuff we have not activated these monetary stuff, and like we're not interested. We just want to get the message across. We want to give people a platform, and you don't have to be a platform to be. You don't have to be a celebrity to be on the platform. You call us, we come through. If you have a story, if you have an interesting story, family story, tell your story. We'll listen. Yeah, so from my side, Baloyi, really appreciate your time. We really honor the invite. And you mentioned, you touched on structures. It shows because even in the 2-minute clip that you did when we went to see you guys at the signing of the oath, you literally put us under pressure. And that's how people should not just hear what it is that you say. They should also listen to what it is that you said, because you had said, catch more of me on this platform. It then puts the pressure on us to bring the platform to say that man called us. You understand? So it's those type of things, and it's things that you don't only use in politics. You use it in your business as well, and you use it in life as well as you go forward. So from my side, Baba, ngiyabonga, and on behalf of the viewers and the listeners as well,
And the voters.
And the voters. and who are going to go and vote for you.
And those who have now been convinced. So yeah, no, really appreciate it. Agani?